Hey y'all, it's your girl Lenita Harris here, and today we're going to be wrapping up our Love It Still Works series by talking about what would Jesus do? Would he hold on or let go? And what was his boundary setting like? Now, I know some of your eyes just got so big out there, and y'all are like, I know we are not about to talk about this. But y'all, yes, we are. So let's go ahead and get into it.
It's never too late for you to embrace who you are. It's never too late to embrace who you were designed to be.
Remember in the first episode, we talked about Jesus' tremendous love for others and how that culminated into him sacrificing his life for the freedom and betterment of mankind, right? And you're probably thinking that Jesus never let go of anybody. But I want you to think about something from a different perspective. Imagine how his 12 disciples, who later became apostles, may have felt when he died. Because if you know the story of Jesus, you know he died and then rose again some days later. But when he died, how do you think the disciples felt? Because, baby, that was it. He was just gone. He let them go. Jesus came into these people's lives, turned them completely upside down, showed them all kinds of new and wonderful things, and became really, really close with them over the course of 3 years. Jesus did life with these people, and then he was just gone. Now, they went on with their lives in the meantime for a few days, but when he came back from the dead, he went around visiting people for 40 days. So it was like he was kind of back. And then on that 40th day, some of his 12 were with him, and they saw him straight ascend into the sky on a cloud. So they lost him twice. Again, Jesus let them go in this natural realm. Before he left, though, he said, I'll be with you and I'll be in you, and I go to prepare a place for you. We shall be together again. Could you imagine loving someone tremendously and then losing them, then actually seeing them again? And low key, as soon as you get accustomed to their presence in your life again, they leave you again. In the last episode, I spoke about grief and how the loss of a person brings all kinds of emotions and things to the surface for us to have to deal with. I wonder what that grief felt like for the 12. So after Jesus left the earth, it was up to his disciples to carry out the principles he taught them while he was physically with them. You see, people grow in a variety of ways, and perhaps the two most impactful ways are when they're held, which is when they're walked with and shown examples, and you're there present to help and oversee them by giving them instructions and whatnot, like a parent or a mentor. And then when they are let go, which is when you let up because you know they have to start implementing things on their own and they have to learn more for themselves. So let's talk about these boundaries Jesus was setting. Do you know the story of Lazarus? If you don't, I'm going to tell you now. It's in John chapter 11. Now, I'm going to paraphrase verses 1 through 19, okay? So there were people that Jesus loved and who loved him, named Lazarus and Lazarus's two sisters, Mary and Martha. They lived in Bethany, which was a small village in Judea. One day, Jesus was off somewhere else teaching and helping people when Lazarus got or was already sick. So the sisters sent word to Jesus and requested that he come back to see about Lazarus. Well, Jesus got their message, but he didn't go. He had his reasons for not going, but the fact is Jesus stayed right where he was for another 2 whole days, finished what he was doing, and then he returned. Why in the world would he do that? Why wouldn't he go right away? Think about yourself. How many times has someone you loved called on you to be somewhere with them or do something for them and you didn't show? What were your reasons? Now, I'm not saying that your reasons are Jesus's exact reasons, but I am saying that sometimes no matter how much you love someone and want to be there for them, you just can't because of something you deem a higher priority. I'll tell you what makes matters more interesting about this here situation in John chapter 11. According to verse 8, Lazarus and Mary and them lived in Judea, where some inhabitants were looking for Jesus to stone him and whoever was with him. So there's that dynamic as well. Anyhow, y'all, Lazarus dies, and Mary and Martha are feeling some type of way. Jesus is on his way back, and he knows that Lazarus has died as well. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us if he just knew internally or instinctively, or if someone had told him. But by the time Jesus arrived with the intent to raise Lazarus from the dead, y'all, Lazarus had already been dead for 4 whole days, child. Now let's read. John chapter 11, verses 20 through 35. I'm going to be reading from the Amplified Classic Version. Verse 20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, while Mary remained sitting in the house. Martha then said to Jesus, Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And even now I know that whatever you ask from God, he will grant it to you. Verse 24. Jesus said to her, Your brother shall rise again. Martha replied, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in, adheres to, trusts in, and relies on me, although he may die, yet he shall live. And whoever continues to live and believes in me shall never actually die at all. Do you believe this? Verse 27. She said to him, Yes, Lord, I have believed. I do believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, even he who has come into the world. Verse 28. After she said this, she went back and called her sister Mary, privately whispering to her, The teacher is close at hand and is asking for you. Now push pause, y'all, because we didn't read nowhere in that last part that Jesus asked for Mary, did we? So it looks like Martha just kind of showed up and said that. But I don't know, maybe Jesus did, and it just didn't quite make it into the scripture. Also, biblical scholars seem to not really agree on whether this Mary and Martha is the same Mary and Martha mentioned in Luke chapter 11 when Jesus showed up at Martha's house to teach the people while Martha did the cleaning and Mary did the listening. Y'all know what I'm talking about? But y'all, if this is the same Mary and Martha, honey, this is the second time Jesus done played Martha to the left. Did you hear me? Because in that story, Martha requested Jesus tell Mary to help her clean, and Jesus was basically like, nah, she good. She chose to listen to me and learn things that can't be taken away from her. You're choosing to clean. She made the best choice. Yikes! And now Martha has come to meet him without being requested in the middle of her grief. And this exchange is rather interesting. He answers her concern with basically, your brother shall rise again, says some stuff about himself, and asks her a question. Martha couldn't get a hug or nothing, Jesus. Like, I wonder, did Martha feel rejected? How did she view this exchange? Well, we don't really know because it ain't detailed in the book. And now Mary brings herself down to where Jesus is, and it's a whole different story. Push play. Verse 29. When she heard this, meaning Mary, she sprang up quickly and went to Jesus. Now, Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the same spot where Martha had met him. Verse 31. When the Jews who were sitting with Mary in her house and consoling her saw how hastily she had risen and gone out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to pour out her grief there. Verse 32. When Mary came to the place where Jesus was and saw him, she dropped down at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her sobbing, and the Jews who came with her also sobbing, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Verse 34, and he said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Verse 35, Jesus wept. Now Mary shows up and literally says the exact same thing Martha has just said, but for some reason, Jesus broke out crying this time. And why was he weeping so strongly while knowing he was about to raise this man up? Understand, y'all, Martha is still present this time too. Because in verses 39 and 40, when Jesus said to take away the stone, Martha is the one who responds by basically saying, wait a minute, Jesus, he been dead for 4 days. And Jesus responded to her with, did I not tell you and promise you that if you would believe and rely on me, you would see the glory of God? Now, what is this seemingly hands-off approach that Jesus is taking with Martha that he doesn't take with Mary? I don't know. But I do know one thing. Jesus was real big on giving people what they needed when they needed it for them to best grow. Perhaps he was giving Martha what she needed to grow in her current place and doing the same with Mary. The methods were different, but the love, the same. The end of the story is that Jesus ultimately raised Lazarus from the dead, but there were many days between when they called for him to spring into action and when he actually sprang into action. Jesus drew a hard boundary there, guys, when he decided to not go back, and they just had to respect it. Did they feel some type of way about it? Yes, but that didn't change the boundary. There are other times mentioned when Jesus drew boundaries as well. The times when multitudes were thronging him and he withdrew from them to go be alone in solace with God. What I see in that is Jesus also needing time to recharge and to decompress, to receive instruction, or maybe get rejuvenated so he could go back out and continue to help people. Guys, listen to me. There will always be more people who need help than you're physically capable of helping at any given time. Because while you are here on this earthly plane, you are a finite being. And even Jesus operated within those constructs while he was here. Could he have done different things while he was here? Called on angels and all kinds of other stuff and transcended or usurped these physical constructs? Yes. But that wouldn't have helped us very much because we wouldn't have been able to do the same things. Jesus knew one day he'd leave this place and we would be given the instruction to carry out his teachings and follow in his footsteps. You can't follow in someone's footsteps who's using special powers when you don't have access to those same powers. In conclusion, even Jesus had to let go of those he loved here in this physical realm. And now we connect with Jesus and God via our spirit and heart. He's no longer bound by and having to operate within the physical, earthly boundaries and parameters. And we do the best that we can while we're here in these parameters with the examples and principles that he left behind. So you see, love is a cyclical process of varying degrees of holding on and letting go of someone, from being extremely hands-on to being extremely hands-off. Eventually, we absolutely can get to the place where we love others and ourselves unconditionally most of the time through this process. But that only comes by way of a lot of practice, turning the other cheek, showing up and getting past our levels of comfort consistently, preferring the other person, truly understanding another person and how they operate, making room for both their way and our way, regardless of whether or not we agree. Forgiving, evolving accordingly, and pressing forward. Guys, we're only capable of so much, being clothed here in humanity and being finite beings. We cannot be everywhere at the same time, helping everyone, being there for everyone like we would want to. Even Jesus had to prioritize his connections with people and his energy levels. Even he had to decide how much is enough. How much of myself am I going to have to sacrifice? When can I stop? What about me? When to hold on and when to let go? So it's not outlandish for us to have to make those same decisions as well. I wish you well navigating your journeys and peace and wisdom in your decision making. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk About It, the Gray Area, and I'll see you next week. Same time, same place.
You can start